On to something a little bit more lighthearted and a bit more fun for some, or at least for fans of this particular author. We have a new film project coming up from author J.R.R. Martin. And that should pique some people's interest out there because, of course, J.R.R. Martin is the writer and creator of the series for Game of Thrones, which is actually based on a Song of Ice and Fire. Yeah, it's Song of Ice and Fire. But those are not the only books he writes, and we're getting an adaptation of a story or a series, I guess, or at least a book called The Lost Lands. In the Lost Lands. I'm sorry. In the Lost Lands is the name of one of his works, apparently, and it is going to be developed by none other than Paul W.S. Anderson, best known for the Resident Evil franchise. He will direct his adaptation of In the Lost Lands, a sprawling epic based on the story by George R.R. Martin, Milla Jovovich, also of Resident Evil movies, and Dave Bautista from the Guardians of the Galaxy franchise will star. Now, that paragraph right there that I just read has probably got a lot of people with a lot of conflicting emotions. Because I imagine there's a lot of George R.R. Martin fans out there that are like, yes, awesome. I'm not familiar with this. I'm familiar with Martin and Game of Thrones, but I'm not familiar with In the Lost Lands. But I'd be willing to watch a movie that he penned because I think he was a good author. I read the first 3.5 Game of Thrones books or Story of Ice and Fire books, and I enjoyed what I read, and I really enjoyed the show. So I'd be really excited to see a movie based on that. However, it's that name there, Paul W.S. Anderson, that I threw in as the director. I know that's going to bother some people, mainly because of the Resident Evil movies. But let's take a look away from the Resident Evil movies for a second. What else has Anderson made? People give him a lot of shit, and a lot of that shit comes down to the Resident Evil movies. But take those out of the filmography for a minute and look at what else he's got going on. The guy's got some good movies there. Some underrated ones, some cult films such as Soldier. I can't speak today. But also Event Horizon, which is getting a Blu-ray or a 4K release here soon, by the way. But Event Horizon is that movie, the little movie that came out and nobody wanted to see it. And then as the years went on, it became a bona fide cult classic. But he also made Death Race, the remake of Death Race, which was with Jason Statham, the first one, which is actually pretty cool. Most recently, he made the adaptation of Monster Hunter, which wasn't amazing, but it wasn't bad. It was entertaining enough for the night. I didn't hate it. I didn't love it. It was fine. And, of course, he made 1995's Mortal Kombat, which we're going to find out here in about a month and a half if it gets outdone by the new version. But either way, he's made some good movies. He's got some other ones under his belt, too, but those are some of the highlights. So I think he could take this on. He recently, or not recently, I guess probably within the past 10 years, he took on a adaptation of the story of Pompeii. I only saw it once. I remember it being okay. I know he wrote it, and maybe his writing style isn't for everybody, because he wrote the Resident Evil movies as well. But I know, like Event Horizon, he had writing credits on it, but he didn't write that. Soldier, I think he had writing credits, but he wasn't the only writer. So maybe that's the thing. Here he's adapting a story of In the Lost Lands, which is written by Martin. And it doesn't say that he will be the only one writing it, so maybe he'll get some help writing this one, and it'll turn out to be pretty good. The guy knows how to direct action, as long as he doesn't direct it like he did with Resident Evil: The Final Chapter. That was terribly edited. But the guy knows how to direct action. He knows how to make entertaining, fun movies. So we'll see. I'm going to reserve judgment. Martin's stories typically have a lot going on in them, or at least the ones that I read. There's usually a whole lot going on in them, and I'm going to assume that In the Lost Lands does as well. We'll find out when it comes out. I'm just hoping that Anderson, this will probably be, story-wise, I'd say probably one of the more complex stories that he's tackled thus far, so we'll see how he does with that. It does say that in the movie, a queen, desperate to fulfill her love, makes a daring play. She hires a sorceress, Grey Alice, that name, which will be played by Jovovich, a woman as feared as she is powerful, sent to the ghostly wilderness of the Lost Lands. Alice and her guide, the drifter Boyce, played by Bautista, must outwit and outfight man and demon in this fable that explores the nature of good and evil, debt and fulfillment, love and loss. Okay. I mean, that's a pretty generic. I don't think it's gonna be generic, but that's a broad description of this thing. It doesn't really give too much, but it gives enough just to kind of give you an idea of this is the type of fantasy world it's going to be in. But we'll see, man. I don't know. The biggest takeaway here is that Paul Anderson is taking this thing on. If you're not a huge fan, if you just hate every one of his movies, this honestly probably ain't going to be the one for you. I doubt the guy's going to totally change his directing style coming into this movie. But if you've liked some of his movies, and if you've liked the Resident Evil movies, but especially if you've liked some of his movies, we might find something to like here. Martin is definitely a talented writer, so the story, I'm sure, even though it seems a little basic there in that description I just read, I'm sure there's going to be some stuff there that makes it interesting. We'll just have to see how Anderson ends up adapting it and how it turns out. Bautista's in it. Jovovich is in it. I like Milla Jovovich. I think she's very charismatic. She's a very physical actress, and I like her, and pretty much she's everything she's in. But Dave Bautista, I really like Dave Bautista. He's only been in really one movie that I didn't care. Well, he was in Spectre. I didn't really care for Spectre, but he was also in that movie where he's driving the car, or the guy was driving him around. Came out last year. I didn't like that movie. But besides that, I've liked Dave Bautista in pretty much everything else he's been in. So I'm hoping that he brings that charisma. He's got just a charm to him as well that I really enjoy. So we'll see, though. This movie has a lot going for it, and I'm hoping that they're able to pay it off. Probably about a year and a half from now, we'll hear about this movie. If I had to guess, I'd say probably summer 2022. And hopefully we get Anderson's best movie yet with In the Lost Lands. Thanks for checking out this clip from the JarCast Movie Podcast. If you like this and want more, then check out the JarCast live stream every Tuesday night at 9 p.m. Central Time on the Jacob Anders Review YouTube channel, where you can also find movie reviews every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and Sunday. You can also listen to the entire podcast on all major podcasting platforms such as Spotify, Google, and iTunes. So if you prefer audio, whichever one is your preferred, check it out there. Once again, I really appreciate it, and thanks for watching. And as always, stay sexy, YouTube.